always been drawn to the dark corners of history, the places where the past refuses to stay buried. I'm not a thrill seeker, not really, but I've spent years chasing stories of the unexplained, hauntings, murders, mysteries that linger like a bad dream. I run a small YouTube channel where I share these stories, piecing together the fragments of what happened and why. Most of the time, I stay behind the camera, safe in my little apartment, narrating from the comfort of my desk. But last summer, I decided to do something different. I wanted to go to the source, to feel the weight of a story in my bones. That's how I ended up in Villisca, Iowa, standing in front of a house that's been whispering its horrors for over a century. This is the story of the night the Villisca Axe murders haunted me, a night that changed everything I thought I knew about fear. It all started with a comment on one of my videos. I'd done an episode about the Villisca Axe murders, a gruesome case from 1912. For those who don't know, the Moore family, Josiah, Sarah, their 4 children, and 2 young guests were slaughtered in their sleep by an unknown assailant wielding an axe. 8 lives snuffed out in the dead of night. The killer left no trace, no motive, no answers. The case remains unsolved, but the house has never been quiet. People say it's haunted, that the spirits of the victims are trapped there, reliving their final moments. My video was just a retelling, pieced together from old newspaper articles and paranormal blogs. But it struck a nerve. The comment read, "You think you know the Villisca story? Spend a night in the house, then tell us what you believe." It was signed Lena. No last name, no profile picture. Something about it stuck with me, like a splinter under my skin. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I'd never done an on-location shoot before. My channel was small, barely 10,000 subscribers, and my budget was non-existent. But the idea of spending a night in the Villisca Axe Murder House, now a museum that allows overnight stays, felt like a chance to take my content to the next level. I could document the experience, capture the atmosphere, maybe even catch something unexplainable on camera. I told myself it was about the story, about giving my audience something real. But deep down, I think I wanted to prove something to myself. I wanted to know if I could face the darkness I'd been narrating for years. Booking the house wasn't cheap. It cost me $400 for the night, nearly all my savings, but I convinced myself it was an investment. I drove 6 hours from my home in Illinois to Villisca, a sleepy little town that felt frozen in time. The streets were lined with old-fashioned houses, their porches sagging under the weight of years. The air was thick with the scent of cut grass and something else, something heavier, like the memory of rain that never came. The house itself was unassuming, a 2-story white clapboard structure with a small porch and dark windows that seemed to watch me as I pulled into the gravel driveway. It looked like any other house on the block, except for the sign out front. Villisca Axe Murder House. Tours and overnight stays. That, and the chill that crawled up my spine the moment I stepped out of my car. It was late afternoon when I arrived, the sun hanging low and golden in the sky. I met Martha, the caretaker, a kind-faced woman in her 60s with a no-nonsense demeanor. She gave me a quick tour, pointing out the restored furniture, the creaky floorboards, the spots where the bodies were found. The Moore family's bedrooms were upstairs, Josiah and Sarah in one, their children in another, the two Stillinger girls, Lena and Ina, in the guest room downstairs. Martha recited the facts like she'd done it 1,000 times. The murders happened sometime after midnight on June 10th, 1912. The killer likely entered through the back door. The axe was left at the scene, smeared with blood. She didn't mention ghosts, but her eyes lingered on the shadows in the corners, and I noticed she didn't step foot in the children's bedroom. "You'll be alone tonight," she said as she handed me the keys. "No one else booked. Lock the doors and don't open them for anyone. If you need me, my number's on the fridge, but I'm 20 minutes away." Her voice was steady, but there was a warning in it, like she knew something I didn't. I nodded, trying to look braver than I felt. "Oh, and one more thing," she added, almost as an afterthought. "If you hear footsteps, don't follow them. Not everyone who walks these halls is here." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Then she was gone, and I was alone with the house. I set up my equipment as the sun dipped below the horizon. I had a GoPro for video, a digital recorder for audio, and a notebook to jot down anything unusual. My plan was simple: explore the house, narrate my experience, and stay awake until dawn. I wasn't expecting to see ghosts. I figured I'd capture some creepy ambiance, maybe a few unexplained noises, and call it a win. But as the last light faded and the house settled into darkness, something shifted. The air grew heavy, like a storm was brewing inside the walls. Every creak, every sigh of the old wood felt deliberate, like the house was waking up. I started in the parlor, sitting on a faded velvet sofa that smelled of dust and time. I turned on my recorder and began narrating. It's 8:17 p.m. and I'm in the Villisca Axe Murder House. The air feels thick, like I'm breathing through a mask. The silence is louder than it should be. I paused, listening. The house answered with a faint groan, like someone shifting their weight upstairs. I laughed nervously, chalking it up to the building settling, but my heart was already pounding. I decided to move to the kitchen, where the back door, the killer's likely entry point, still stood. The lock was flimsy, a single bolt that looked like it hadn't been updated since 1912. I tested it, and it clicked into place, but it didn't make me feel safer. By 9 p.m., I was upstairs, standing in the doorway of the master bedroom. This was where Josiah and Sarah Moore were found, their skulls crushed, their faces unrecognizable. The bed was made up with a quilt that looked too cheerful for the room's history. I set up the GoPro on a tripod, aiming it at the bed, and started filming. "This is the room where it began," I said, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. "The killer stood right here, axe in hand, and..." I stopped. A shadow flickered in the corner of my eye, just outside the camera's frame. I spun around, but there was nothing. Just the empty hallway, lit by the dim glow of my flashlight. My pulse raced, but I forced myself to keep going. "Just my imagination," I muttered, though I wasn't sure I believed it. The children's bedroom was next, and it was worse. The air in there was colder, sharp, like stepping into a freezer. Two small beds sat against the wall, their mattresses sagging under invisible weight. I didn't want to go in, but I made myself. I set the recorder on the floor and started talking, describing the room, the toys left on a shelf, the faded wallpaper. That's when I heard it. A whisper. So faint, I thought I'd imagined it. It came from the recorder, not the room itself. I stopped talking and played it back. There, beneath my own voice, was a sound. A soft, breathy word that might have been help. My hands shook as I replayed it, over and over, trying to convince myself it was static. But it wasn't. It was a voice, and it wasn't mine. I should have left then. Every instinct screamed at me to grab my things and run, but I didn't. Part of me was terrified, but another part, the part that had spent years chasing stories, was hooked. I needed to know more. I moved downstairs to the guest room, where Lena and Ina Stillinger were killed. The room was small, barely big enough for the single bed and a dresser. I sat on the floor, my back against the wall, and turned on the recorder again. "It's 11:03 p.m., I said. "I just heard something in the children's room. A voice, maybe. I don't know what's happening, but I'm going to keep going." The words felt hollow, like I was trying to convince myself. That's when the footsteps started. They were heavy, deliberate, coming from the hallway above. Thump, 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 like someone pacing back and forth right over my head. I froze, my breath caught in my throat. Martha's warning echoed in my mind. Don't follow them. But I couldn't just sit there. I grabbed my flashlight and crept to the foot of the stairs, shining the beam upward. The hallway was empty, but the footsteps didn't stop. They grew louder, faster, like whoever or whatever was up there was angry. I called out, my voice trembling. "Hello? Is someone there?" The footsteps stopped abruptly, and for a moment, the silence was worse. Then, from the top of the stairs, came a single, slow creak, like someone had taken a step toward me. I don't know how I found the courage, but I climbed the stairs, one hand gripping the railing, the other clutching the flashlight. The beam shook, casting wild shadows on the walls. When I reached the top, the hallway was empty, but the door to the children's bedroom was ajar. I hadn't left it that way. I pushed it open, and the cold hit me again, stronger this time, like a physical force. The room was dark, the GoPro still on its tripod, its red recording light blinking. I checked the footage later, and what I saw made my blood run cold. For 3 seconds, the bed in the frame appeared to sink, as if someone had sat on it, then sprang back up. But there was no one there. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I sat in the parlor, my back to the wall, listening to the house breathe. The footsteps came and went, sometimes upstairs, sometimes closer, like they were circling me. At one point, around 3:00 a.m., I heard a sound from the kitchen, a metallic scrape, like an axe being dragged across the floor. I didn't investigate. I couldn't. My body was screaming at me to leave, but I was too stubborn, too invested. I kept telling myself it was just the house, just my mind playing tricks. But then the whispers started again. Not from the recorder this time, but from the air around me. They were faint, overlapping, like a chorus of voices, too soft to understand. One word stood out, clear and sharp. Lena. I don't know how I made it to dawn. When the first light crept through the windows, the house fell silent, like it was holding its breath. I packed my things and left, my hands shaking so badly I could barely lock the door. I didn't look back as I drove away, but I felt the house watching me. its windows like eyes. When I got home, I reviewed the footage and audio. The whispers, the footsteps, the sinking bed, they were all there, undeniable. I uploaded the video to my channel, expecting skepticism, maybe even ridicule. Instead, the comments exploded. People believed me, they wanted more. But one comment stopped me cold. It was from Lena, the same user who'd dared me to spend the night. It read, "You heard me, now you'll never leave." That was 6 months ago. I haven't been back to Villisca, but the house hasn't let me go. I hear footsteps in my apartment sometimes, late at night, pacing just out of sight. My recorder picks up whispers when I'm not recording. Faint voices that vanish when I play them back. I don't sleep much anymore. The Villisca Axe Murder House isn't just a story, it's a trap. And I walked right into it. If you're watching this, if you're thinking about visiting that house, don't. Some doors once opened don't close. And some voices once heard never stop calling your name.